So when we talk about what a healthy diet is, we can have this discussion kind of to no end because there's a lot of variation in terms of what a healthy diet is. And certainly what is best for one person might differ for what's in terms of what is best for someone else. However, even though there can be so much variation in terms of what is healthy, there are a few really key concepts, like core concepts, to defining a healthy diet. Those four things are balance, moderation, variety, and adequacy. So these all tie into one another. They're not really separate from each other anyway. Balance is suggesting that you get enough of, or not enough of, balance is suggesting that you get all of the nutrients that you need. So you get all of the macronutrients, all of the fats, all of the protein, all of the carbohydrate. You also get all of the micronutrients you need. So you get all the vitamins and all the minerals that you need. You get fiber, you get water, you get all sorts of phytochemicals. So a balanced diet provides everything that you need. Variety helps ensure that you get a balanced diet because there's, like we've said before, there's no one food that provides everything your body needs. So you need to eat a bunch of different foods from the different food groups and even different foods within a certain food group. So you can't just subsist on broccoli and say, I'm eating vegetables. You need to eat a much greater variety of vegetables to actually provide all the vitamins and minerals your body needs. Also, if you're eating grains, you can't just eat oats. There's a lot of other grains that have nutrients that oats don't have. Moderation is not too much, not too little. So moderation definitely includes having treats, right? We can have a piece of cake if it's our mom's birthday. We can have a lollipop if we're taking our kids to the museum and they're giving out lollipops. We can have little treats and candies and sweets and quote unquote guilty pleasure foods. We just don't have them all the time, right? And the same thing goes, again, like the broccoli example. Don't eat 6 pounds of broccoli at every meal. Change it up. Have cauliflower, or try having spinach, or have some carrots, have some peppers, right? So not too much and not too little of anything and everything. And then adequacy, again, all of them tying in together. An adequate diet provides you with sufficient nourishment. So if you're having a balanced and varied diet and not eating too much or too little of anything, then you have an adequate diet. You're getting as much nutrients as your body needs. Again, what's adequate for one person is different from another. So, an NFL quarterback has a different nutritional need than a 12-year-old gymnast. So here's just a quick picture of a healthy diet, right? We have pretty much all foods that are here. We've got vegetables, we have fruits, we have whole grains and processed grains. We have some food from the dairy group if we want. We have candy, and then we have meat, fish, eggs, nuts. So I asked this question, what's not here? And of course I pull these pictures off the internet and there's never a perfect picture that I can find. Several things are missing here. So one thing that's not here that should be here are legumes. So beans and lentils, those are an incredibly healthy part of an incredibly important part of a healthy diet, and we'll look at this a lot in future lectures. So beans and legumes should be in here. What's not here is junk food, right? So a little bit of candy, but you see no soda, you see no cookie, you see no cookies, you see no fruit juices, you see no macaroni and cheese, you see no hamburgers and hot dogs and, chicken nuggets or fish sticks. These are whole, real foods. So that's a huge component of a healthy diet, that the food is whole, like it exists in its original form as it would have come from the animal or from the plant. And it's real. So none of this was made up in a laboratory, except maybe some of those crackers and bread products and candies, of course. But when you're looking at grapes and you're looking at bananas and you're looking at mushrooms and peppers and beans and peas and fish and shrimp and nuts and eggs and beef, these things are real. So they weren't made up. They came naturally from a plant or they came naturally from an animal. So that's a huge concept in what a healthy diet is. So what is an empty calorie? This is a key term that's going to keep coming up. An empty calorie is any sort of food or quote unquote food that provides little to no nutrient. So remember that a nutrient is anything that nourishes the body. It's something that the body requires to be healthy and well. So these foods, chips, donuts, cookies, cinnamon buns, soda pop, these things don't provide anything that the body needs, but you do get a decent amount of fat and sugar that's not good for your body. So that's effectively what an empty calorie is. You have something that's pretty high in calories, usually from fat or sugar, and has absolutely zero nutrient value. Really quickly, we haven't looked at MyPlate, which is on the left, only because it's a little outdated now, but we talked about it briefly in previous lectures. So this is former USDA dietary guidelines for Americans. They offered it up as a plate. So how do you compose a healthy plate? And I just want you to take a little bit of time to think about how does that plate differ from their current recommendations. Some things that I'll pull out are that in the current recommendations from 2015 to 2020, they're talking a lot more about the overall approach. So not just looking at singular meals and singular plates, but talking about how is a person actually living their lifestyle, and how are they impacted by family at home or friends at work, or friends outside of work, or other children who might go to school with their children, friends and family that serve as your community. How are those people helping support you in making healthy choices? So one of the big differences going forward, and it's important to note because simply looking at the plate alone, it's a good first step, but understanding that there's a lot more to it than just putting together this healthy plate. But a couple of really important thought questions, and I'm going to run through kind of briefly in this lecture, and we're going to come back to another lecture. What is a whole grain? So this is a huge part of the first recommendation from the dietary guidelines for 2015-2020. It says follow a healthy eating pattern, and within that healthy eating pattern, you should include whole grains, you should include proteins, you should include a variety of vegetables, you should include whole fruits, potentially some dairy or soy. So the trick here is that whole grain is a term that gets tossed around a lot in marketing material. A whole grain is a seed. A grain is a seed. It's the seed of a grass plant. So a true whole grain is in a seed form. If you see any product labeled as a whole grain and it's not a seed, it's not a whole grain. A whole grain is a seed. So all seeds inherently have a fibrous outer shell that protects the inside of the seed. And then inside the seed, similar to an egg, you're going to have a germ, which it would be equivalent to the yolk. That's what's going to grow and become the plant. And you have the endosperm, which is sort of the food for the plant. The germ, kind of the yolk equivalent, contains some proteins, contains some healthy fats, and also fat-soluble vitamins. The endosperm is largely carbohydrate, but also a little bit of vitamins and minerals. And then the bran is fiber, so indigestible, but really important for overall digestive health. So when you see food that's labeled as whole grain, but there's no grain in it, it's basically a miscommunication about what it is. So to eat whole grains, a person should really be eating the grain itself. So a whole oat, or a whole wheat berry, or brown rice. Buckwheat is another great example, or millet, whole rye. So we'll get into this more in the carbohydrate lecture, but I just want to point that out. If you're eating bread or pasta or crackers that's labeled as whole grain, there's, again, I'll explain in a future lecture what that actually means, but know that a whole grain is a seed. And then milk, this is really pushed by the dietary guidelines for Americans, but we'll come at this in future lectures. Isn't necessary to drink milk to have a healthy diet. The quick answer is no, absolutely not. And in fact, humans, if you're familiar with lactose intolerance, either if you have it or you know someone who does, lactose is milk sugar. And to be intolerant of lactose is to say that your body can't digest it. So there's a protein called lactase that digests the milk sugar lactose. Most babies come out of the womb and then drink breast milk. And so as an infant, a human being has lactase, this protein to digest milk sugar. Around age 2, the human body stops producing lactase. The human body naturally stops producing this protein to develop milk sugar. So to be lactose intolerant is actually pretty normal because your body's supposed to stop being able to digest milk around the time that you would naturally wean from your mother's breast. However, we've been bombarded with bovine dairy in this country. So some people are finding a way to still digest milk or tolerate it, but know that it's actually pretty normal to not be able to digest milk. So no milk is not a necessary component of a healthy diet. And again, we'll look at other great food sources of calcium going forward. One thing, if you flip to the previous slide, that is really important, water is nowhere in the former MyPlate or the current dietary guidelines for Americans, but water is an absolutely essential nutrient, as we saw, and we should all be drinking a lot of water on a daily basis. We'll come at this again later. So real quickly, we'll go through food labels. Food labels on your packages, on your food packages, are regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. And I want to pose this question to you. The Food and Drug Administration. Given that title alone, what else do you think the Food and Drug Administration is in charge of? Hint, it's not the food part and it's not the administration part. So the FDA also regulates drugs in this country, prescription medication. So I want you to take a couple minutes and think about how might that relate to their ability to honestly and truthfully regulate our food and the quality of our food. Think about that, and if you want to write anything into the ongoing discussion board, please do. Certain foods are not regulated by the FDA. Examples are meat and poultry, which are regulated by the USDA, and then certain things like coffees and spices, and even produce, so fruits and vegetables. These things don't require a label. This is a really blurry picture taken from the textbook. So just to point out a couple of things for what's on a food label. We're going to go through this in the next couple slides, so you can refer back to this if you want. But on the front of the label, you need to have a statement of identity. So if you look right about here, it says that this is soup. They need to tell you what's in it. So down here in the bottom, in the center, it gives you the net, sorry, not what's in it, but the contents, so the net weight. It needs to give you an address to contact the company, but what's interesting is it doesn't need to tell you where the food comes from or where any of these myriad ingredients were grown or produced. There needs to be this nutrition facts panel. And then within the nutrition facts panel, they need to tell you a few things. They need to tell you serving size. So that's a really important one to note because a lot of times we eat the whole package, but a lot of times there are more than one serving per container. So this particular thing of soup has 2 servings. They need to tell us how many calories. So we see right here the number of calories. They need to tell us the ingredients, which is here. And in the ingredients, they list ingredients by weight. So the first few ingredients you see, that's what there is the most of. As you go down the list, there's less of these things. So check some of your favorite snacks. You might find sugar pretty high in the list. Sugar and different types of oils make up the vast majority of packaged foods. They also need to show you the percent daily value, which is this over here, and then the footnote, which is basically this part, and that's the percent daily value based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So in my professional opinion, this is very useless information because most of us don't count calories, although I guess plenty of people do, but Let me see if I'm missing anything. Yes, so the other thing about this panel is that what they list up here, so when they start to tell you the nutrient list, which is this top part, the nutrients listed up high are the ones you tend to want to be aware of limiting. And then these ones down below are the ones you tend to want. So if you look at this, there's only 2% calcium, 2% iron, no vitamin C, 10% vitamin A. So I wouldn't call this a very nutrient-rich food. Yet it does have not too much sugar and not too much fat. So not necessarily a terrible food, but not necessarily a food worth eating either. So here's just, again, what's on the food label. And again, what's on the nutrition facts panel. And then one more thought question. If it has a label, is it a food? So there's this larger question of what is food? And I challenge you to really think about this. Are pretzels food? Are Oreos food? Macaroni and cheese, goldfish, soda? So what is food? Is food supposed to be nourishing? Is it supposed to feed our bodies and help our bodies be well and strong and healthy? Or is food meant to take away from our health and make us feel sick? So ponder these questions, and we'll see you on the discussion board. Thanks for listening.